for the Western release of the game, and we're looking at tweaking it a little bit and doing a few little special additions to make TVC All-Stars the penultimate version of the game.
All right, now for those who haven't been following the game, and you should have because it's super rad, walk us through what this game is. It looks like Ryu's fighting a rainbow dude with a spear. This is not Street Fighter, is it?
That is correct. That is the Tekkaman, the Space Knight. Yeah, so this is the collision of the Capcom universe with Tatsunoko, and Tatsunoko is a great Japanese animation studio that's been running from the 60s, responsible for a lot of really great iconic characters, and they're very familiar to people in Japan, not as familiar to people in the West, but regardless of whether you know these characters or not, they're super fun to play, and there's giant robots punching you in the face, and people flying all over the screen, and it's got the same great mechanics as like a Marvel vs. Capcom 2 style game.
So talk to us about the fighting system, because that's been one of the things that you guys have had a lot of positive feedback about, because it's not Street Fighter deep, but it's somewhere in the middle, right?
It is. There's really a lot to the game, but the best part about it for sure is that it's got really the maximum pick-up and playability, I think, of almost any fighter out there. Almost on like a Smash Brothers kind of level, where there's just a hard, medium, and light attack and a partner button. So you can do call in your partner. It's a 2 versus 2 fighting game, but you can pick it up immediately and start mashing some buttons, and you're having fun right away. And of course, as you get better, there's vistas of skill. You can see some incredible combos and people really pulling things off, but the supers are really easy. It's just usually a fireball motion and 2 buttons, so the first time you try it, you'll be knocking it out of the park.
They're extremely flashy, too.
That's right. And again, in the Grand Marvel tradition, and also just in comic book, anime, and just stylish tradition, they're all over the place. So big supers, full screen, literally people turn into robots. Tekkaman, the guy we saw a minute ago, will throw a spear through you, fly through space, and surf across a giant robot and knock you out. So it's really zany, I think is the word.
It is. So obviously, this came out in Japan end of last year in December. So clear up some confusion that's going on the internet right now, because it seems like you guys announced something, but you didn't, right?
Yes, that darn internet. So, yes, there was an early draft of a press release that went out on the internet. It does contain some inaccurate information, but the good news is that people at home, the team is looking at expanding, looking into expanding the character roster, as well as exploring bringing the game online.
Very cool. So I'm just going to start taking questions from folks. So Tarek Azad from New Jersey wants to know, will this game come out on any system besides the Wii, and will new characters be added to the US version?
As I said, we're looking into adding new characters, so we really want to make this the best version of the game ever released. No plans right now for any other systems. This is a Wii exclusive.
So Nicholas Ridewing from Sweden wants to know how many new characters are there, but you're going to be all coy, aren't you?
I can tell. It's a good thing.
Well, I'm getting all kinds of suggestions for who should be in it. Folks want to know when the game's coming out?
Right now, the only thing we're able to say is winter, so maybe late 2009, early 2010, something in there. But I think it's going to be very much worth the wait, and it's not that far away.
So like the bulk of our questions right now are about the roster. Since you can't answer most of that stuff, I guess the big question is how many characters are going to be in the game? Because I mean, the Japanese version's balanced. You have equal Capcom versus equal Tatsunoko. Yeah. Is that the plan still?
It is still our plan to keep an equal character balance between Tatsunoko and Capcom sides. However that works out in terms of the final roster, we'll see. Can't talk numbers yet, but the more the merrier, and the characters that are already in the game are fantastic.
It's going to come out in Europe as well.
Yes, we are planning to do European version.
Very cool. And so do you want to talk to me about the combo system a little bit? Because we know the supers, we know the stacking, but this isn't like typical Capcom.
No, so I mean, you're able to do kicks and punches all on the same light, medium, hard attack, and I think that throws some people off at the beginning. They say, oh, that doesn't sound good. But my challenge to anyone is to play the game for literally 30 seconds. You'll be having fun right away and forget that you ever cared about having 6 buttons, because this is a crazy amount of fun. So you've got chain combos, air launchers. It actually gets like pretty in-depth with some of the techniques. So we have a new system called Baroque, which we'll find out more about online, but if you take some damage, you can turn some of your healing ability into a possibility of doing like a longer chain combo. You can tag out in the air if you're willing to use a little super. And my favorite thing are the level 3 supers, which are special for each character and are just beautiful. Like they have a great cinematic and have a lot of fun built into them. So it's just crazy, over-the-top stuff happening. The game doesn't take itself too seriously, so a lot of anime style.
Talk specifically to the Tatsunoko characters in it. Capcom characters in it are pretty safe, right?
The Capcom characters are?
The Capcom characters on the roster for the US version, they're pretty safe to talk about, right?
Yeah.
So tell us about some of them.
Well, what's fun about this game and the character cast in particular is that the whole game, I always say, is made with a lot of love. The people who worked on it really care, and they pick characters who really mean a lot to them. So the Capcom cast has some very familiar faces like Ryu and Chun-Li, of course, but it's also got Saki, who's from a Japanese quiz game that was never even released in America. So all over the place, people from Onimusha, rival schools, a really diverse cast of characters that meant something to the designers, so they really went the extra mile in terms of the character animations, in terms of making sure their supers match their personality. We've got Mega Man from the Legends series, as well as his little sidekick and partner in crime Roll. So the characters are really rendered beautifully, a lot of special little actions. And the more you know, the more you're a fan of a particular character, the more you'll get out of just looking at it, because you'll see all these little touches that you wouldn't notice otherwise.
Now, there is a very important question we've just been asked by Sam Pierman from Melbourne, Australia. Can you please confirm that a per-character language setting will be available a la Street Fighter 4?
Per-character language is something that the team is looking into. It's not baked yet, so hopefully we can make that happen.
Very nice. Now, you can stack supers, you can do combo supers as well.
Yes.
Can you explain to us about the balance in the game? Because we know those have a potential to really screw up somebody's day.
They do, but the thing about balance is I think it's better to err on the side of zany. So push things to the highest level, like turn it up to 11, make sure the characters are fun and doing really over-the-top stuff, and then scale it back if there's balance issues. So the team is looking at balance issues. They learned a lot from the TVC Japanese release. So they're making a lot of adjustments based on that feedback. So in the Marvel system, you know, we're saved by damage scaling and a few other advanced techniques. But the game is really fun with a variety of different characters, and actually the roster, even with a Japanese release, is still in development. People are still discovering new techniques with the best characters. So the character, who's the best, it's who's winning, right, that week.
You know, and just looking at the game, it has a really nice look to it, visually. Kind of surprising for the Wii. What can you tell us about how it started? Because it was an arcade game, yeah?
This was, when I first saw this game in early development, I fell in love immediately, and one of the things that enchanted me was the look. I couldn't tell it was a Wii game because it was playing on some mysterious development box that wasn't even a Wii development box. It was just like mysterious box, and I fell in love with the look of the game before I even knew it was on the Wii. I think this is the best looking game on the Wii that I've seen yet at the show, and it really sort of sets the bar. But for me, it's the character animations, but the look is just gorgeous all the way through. The team has gone through and remodeled all the characters, so these are all 3D models. We have the traditional 2D gameplay, but brand new 3D models for everybody. And the 3D models, to me, what really inspired me about it was I grew up on sprite-based arcade fighters, and they were a ton of fun. For me, these new 3D models have the same like attention to detail and care and craft and fun in them that the sprites that I fell in love with used to have back in the day.
I think you should be saying there's some Morrigan's on the screen, because isn't she the oldest Capcom sprite ever seen, ever?
I think Capcom got a little too much mileage out of that Yeah, she was starting to look a little sad towards the end, but here she has beautiful new 3D rendering and...
Very nice. So, amongst all the roster questions that you can't say anything about, since you are the fighting guy at Capcom, this is appropriate. Adrian from Ontario wants to know, where's Marvel vs. Capcom 3? Got anything you want to tell the kids?
We're here to talk about Tatsunoko versus Capcom, so we got Marvel vs. Capcom 2. That's going to be a fantastic game, and hopefully if we can really see that do well, we'll be able to figure out some way forward. But right now it's Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Tatsunoko, I think, is really the next evolution in versus fighting. You got the 3D models, a lot of very new modern features that look great. So for me, this is more than game enough So it doesn't have Marvel characters. It's got sort of the Japanese Marvel, which is the Tatsunoko animation studio. But as far as like zany fighting goes, forget about it. This is a ton of fun.
Yeah, it definitely is. So now we're thinking the Versus series became kind of like a franchise. If the U.S. audience reacts well to this, do you think we'd get another one with more Tatsunoko characters?
That's the hope. I mean, you know, I always want to see more things with fighting in the Versus, so this will be an experiment for the American audience, but I think the game on itself is just really stunning and really reminds you what's fun about fighting games, just to pick it up and start mashing some buttons. And yeah, it's not the chess match of Street Fighter, but it's a lot of fun right away.
Now, speaking of fighting games, because this is what we're talking about, okay, my screen just died, but I did see the question. Just don't know who from. You know, I've got a question from one of our audience members that wants to know if you're a fan of like Tekken and Soul Calibur and those kinds of traditional fighting games, how's this going to float your boat, or is it?